Good afternoon. My name is Muniba Isaacs. I'm a professor at the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies, and I welcome you to this webinar. The title of the webinar is Blue Finance, a red herring for coastal women, the myths, the gaps and the challenges in starting a small business. I would like to welcome everyone as part of a final event in terms of the economics and management sciences to commemorate women. And this forms part of the Dean of Economics and Management Sciences that situates women's event as part of the solidarity of women who marched to the Union buildings on the 9th of August in 1956 to protest against the discriminatory past laws. So the month's events are around towards innovative ways of micro finances and enterprises. For me and for this webinar, the struggle for women is political, and I think that this is definitely a commemoration in that struggle is political. Fast forward to today, we are faced with new struggles for women, and our talk about coastal women is to look at this group of their struggles to be recognized as a group, but also to have coastal women and their struggle for access to natural resources, both in terms of their work and in preparing for fishing, those who are actively fishing, but also those who used to play a strategic and important role in the post-harvest. Women want to create their own micro enterprises, and you will hear this today because they want to provide food for their family, they want to provide education, but they also want their own financial independence. So the real situation for women in coastal communities during COVID-19 was basically also adding to a social reproductive role that they have to play. COVID-19 basically said to women that you are a mother, but you're also now a teacher, you're a community worker, but women also volunteered in soup kitchens. There are also women who are activists, but the challenges and the struggles are often faced in terms of a background of social ills, of drug and alcohol abuse, gender-based violence from their partners, and we have seen what this particularly played out during COVID and continually going. When social grants were allocated, we could see that it was skewed against men, but also that they are, when it come to small-scale fisheries, very little were part of getting small-scale fishers were not as farmers to get any relief packages. So in this sector, there's also a strong male dominance. So why Blue Finance? So Blue Finance is, of course, situated in the blue economy, and I've got some really exciting speakers that I invited. For one, it is Rosie Sisola. She's a coastal woman activist from Lambert's Bay, and Rosie is dialing in from Lambert's Bay on this call. Then we have Portia Sabonka, who is a coastal woman entrepreneur, and she's from Straits Bay. We've also got our student, a PhD student at PLAS, Tracy Lee Dennis. And then we have somebody who has been working with the women, who some of you may know. She is a publisher, TV and radio presenter, but she's also working very hard to kind of try to make change, and that is Ingrid Jones. So I welcome everybody to this webinar. You, of course, know this is Zoom, and in Zoom there is a chat function that you can provide your comments, and the question and answer is where you could pose questions. The structure of today would be, I have posed a number of questions for this webinar in terms of what are the myths, the gaps and the challenges facing coastal women. What can we learn in terms of their struggles for coastal women in terms of fishing rights? Why are women ignored, overlooked, and excluded in starting a small business? What are the challenges in organizing coastal women? And what is this design thinking, and how do we apply it to coastal women? So I'm going to come in again to speak about the challenges and this particular why we are doing this this webinar. But I think it is important to get the voice from Rosie. Rosie, if you can please unmute, and Rosie will speak about her life as a fisherwoman, as a fisher activist, and also her struggles, our current struggles that she is going through. I think I've done all the logistics that I need to do in terms of Zoom. Welcome everybody, and it is an exciting number of people who are watching. So Rosie, can you please, Rosie will speak in Afrikaans, and I have asked Tracy to summarize Rosie's presentation. So Tracy, please take notes to make a good summary. And then the same with Portia will speak in Afrikaans, and I've asked Ingrid to do the translation. Thank you very much. So Rosie, could you please unmute and start?
Good day, everyone. Ek is Rosie Sosola, 'n visser van Lammersbaai, 'n klein vissersdorpie aan die noordweskus van Suid-Afrika. Baie mense vra vir my hoekom 'n visser? Want die see is mos glo nou nie vir 'n vrou nie. Maar die rede is hoekom ek besluit het om op die see te gaan werk. Ek was te trots as vrou om 'n wit vrou se huis te gaan skoonmaak vir 'n inkomste. Ons as nie wit vroue is in daai tyd gesien as vroue wat net goed genoeg is om 'n wit vrou se vuil werk te doen. En dit was 'n no-go vir my. Ek is niemand se meitie. Ek is 'n African queen. Sorry to say that, but that's how I feel. Die ander rede op see is jy vry om te doen wat jy wil, wanneer jy wil. Jy is nie gebind aan 'n etensuur of 'n invaltyd, etc. nie. Eintlik is jy jou eie baas op die see. Die see het 'n manier om jou gees positief te laat voel. Wanneer jy van die see af terugkom, voel jou laste so verligtig. Baie vroue en manne voel die see is nie 'n plek vir 'n vrou nie, maar ons nodig 'n ander denkwyse. Huidiglik is ek 'n postharvester. Ek is huidiglik besig met 'n snoekvlek op die hawe nadat ek 'n hele klompie jare op die see al gewerk het. Ons as vroue in die visbedryf staar baie moeilikhede in die gesig. As dit kom by die uitdeling van regte, dan is dit 95% manne en 5% vroue wat regte kry, toegang tot die see. As jy gelukkig is om 'n vispermit te kry, dan duik die probleem op van mans wat jou nie wil saamvat op hulle bootie want jy's 'n vrou. Ons moet regtig harde bene kou vir oorlewing, terwyl dit ons vroue is wat vanaand vir die gesinne ete voorsit. Maak nie saak wat ons hier maak nie. Maak nie saak hoe jy dit reg kry om my bordkos op die tafel te sit. Ons kry ook moeilik toegang tot finansiële hulp vir besighede terwyl ons briljante planne het en ons het die skills. Byvoorbeeld 'n paar jaar gelede kon vissers en viswerkers wat mainly vroue is, co-opstig om toegang te kry tot finansiële hulp. Daar was 2 co-ops gestig, wat grotendeels uit vroue bestaan het. 12 visvang co-ops is gestig, wat mans was. 8 van daardie co-ops het befondsing van R350.000 gekry van DTI verbote. Die Post-Harvest co-ops het niks gekry nie, alweer die mans wat voordeel trek. En dan wil ek 'n bietjie praat oor die struggle van vissers in geheel. Ons werk in onbeskermde omstandighede. Wat ek daarmee bedoel is, wanneer ons aftree uit die bedryf, is daar geen pensioenfonds vir ons nie. Waar as jy by 'n ander plek werk, byvoorbeeld 'n sekuriteitsmaatskappy en jy word 60, dan kan jy agteroor gaan sit en jy word uitbetaal. Jy kry 'n pensioenfonds. Waar dit in ons geval nie so werk. In ons geval, as jy sê met jou klaar is, dan is die lewe ook met jou klaar. Want jy gaan sit en agteroor en jy gaan sit en krepeer van honger en ellende. Want jy kan mos nou nie meer werk en as geen pensioenfonds uitbetaling vir jou nie. Wanneer 'n besering opgedoen word in werkstyd, is daar ook geen vergoeding nie. Ons as vissers dra ook meer by tot die padongelukkefonds as die padverbruikers met die baie brandstof wat ons daagliks koop om te gaan vis. Maar as 'n visser op die see verongeluk, is daar geen vergoeding vir hom. Terwyl die padgebruiker uitbetaal word as hy in 'n ongeluk is. Terwyl die padgebruiker in 'n minimale manier bydra tot die padongelukkefonds. Ons wat die maksimum bydra, vir ons is daar niks uit wanneer ons op die see verdrink of jy kry seer op die see in jou boot of so nie. Jy moet maar nou net aanvaar. Huidiglik werk ons net 3 maande van die jaar snoek, waar ons 'n salaris verdien. Afhangende van die totaal vis wat jy per dag kan werk. En daai bietjie geld wat jy daar verdien, is te min om 'n besigheid te begin. Iewers moet hulp vandaan kom vir die vissersvroue aan die kuslyn wat betrokke is in visvang. Iewers moet daar hulp vandaan kom vir ons vir besighede. Want jy sien, wintertye is dit die moeilikste tye vir ons as visservroue. Want ek meen 'n man sal nie so worry oor hoe om die kinders te feed nie, hoe om die kinders op skool te hou nie, terwyl die vrou daagliks daaraan moet dink. En intussen is die regering besig om kleinskaalse vissers te laat uitsterf met hulle planne wat hulle het vir die oseaan, byvoorbeeld die Kaapauership, waar hulle beoog om gas en olie uit die see te ontgin om dit te omskep in elektrisiteit. Hierdie storie gaan 'n voordeel wees vir die regering, maar nie vir ons as vissers nie. Want die radioaktiewe strale wat gaan gebruik word in die see, dit gaan die meeste vis laat vrek. En dan sal die visgronde wees vir vissers om te gaan visie. En hierdie planne word gedoen rondom Saldanha en Richards Bay. Aan die Noordweskus word beach mining beplan. Die aksies gaan gate veroorsaak in die see, die pomp van die grys, die diamantgrys of whatever hulle ook al wil ontgin, daai maak gate in die see en dit veroorsaak gibbe. En gibbe is baie gevaarlik wanneer 'n klein windjie opkom. Water met afvalstowwe gaan in die see gepomp word, wat die marine lewe gaan versteur. Vis en kreef gaan na die diepsee emigreer en die vissers sal nie by die vis kan kom nie as gevolg van die afstand. Ons bote wat ons het, is nie toegerus om so ver in die see te gaan nie. Ons fauna en flora gaan ook verwoes word. Met ander woorde, die mense in toerisme gaan ook geraak word, die vroue wat daar werk, hulle gaan ook geraak word, hulle gaan werkloos is, want ons het mos nou nie meer toeriste aantreklikheid by ons nie. Mynery gaan ook probleme veroorsaak vir die gemeenskap. Wanneer al die planne deurgevoer word, sal daar geen visgronde oor wees vir vissers om te gaan visie. Huidiglik speel klimaatsverandering ook 'n rol in die agteruitgang van vissergemeenskappe. Soos byvoorbeeld die kreef buite meer in die dag hier, net in die nag, wat lewensgevaarlik is vir die visser om dan te gaan werk, want ons bote is nie toegerus om met ligte op die see te werk. As gevolg van winde wat nie voorheen so sterk gewaai het soos nou nie, is daar minder see daar. Spesies wat ons voorheen gekry het, is nie meer te vind nie. Ons as vroue moet ons self mobiliseer en ons stemme harder maak. Ons het 'n reg tot te bestaan. Ons word nie waardevol genoeg geag nie. Die werk wat ons doen in ons huishoudings en in die gemeenskappe word nie raak gesien nie, terwyl dit hoogs waardevolle werk is wat ons doen. Ons is van ons skatbare ware. Byvoorbeeld met die COVID lockdown, het baie mense by die huis gesit, hulle kon nie gaan werk nie. Met ander woorde, kinders ly honger. Die skole het toegemaak, wat beteken die kind kan nou nie meer by die skool daai bietjie pap in die oggend eet en in die middag die broodjie nie of die bord kos nie. Met ander woorde, dinge het regtig verswak. En dit was die vroue wat opgestaan het en besluit het, ons maak sopkombuise om die kinders te voed wat nie kan gevoed word by die huisie as gevolg van werkloosheid. En as dit kom by die R350 SASSA grant, dan word vroue nie so gekwalifiseer soos mans nie. Want kyk, die man kry mos nou nie die kind se toelaat nie. Die vrou kry die kind se toelaat. En as gevolg daarvan kan die vrou dan nou nie die toelaat kry nie, omdat die vrou vir R400 per maand toelaat kry by SASSA vir die kind. Dus sulke tipe dinge wat vir ons vroue die struggle ook baie hard maak. I thank you.
Baie dankie, Rosie. Thank you very much. I know that you've been asking whether we're going to translate. I did ask Tracy Lee Dennis to translate. That is, she's coming from a fishing community. And if the students are listening, you should know that, there's a lot of depth that she has given us. She's also given us a lot of experiences, and she touches on the struggles for fishing rights. She touches on the struggles for women, but you're also talking about the issues that she's currently facing within the blue economy. So let us not think that coastal women and coastal people do not know about their rights and cannot articulate their rights by themselves. Thank you very much, Rosie. Tracy, over to you to translate. Rosie, kan jy vir jou mute asseblief? Dankie.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that I've captured everything that Rosie had to say, but I'll try my best. So this was the person that you're listening to now, is Rosie Sisola. She's a fisherwoman from Lambert's Bay on the northwest of South Africa. So her key question in the beginning was, why the ocean? Why the sea? Said,
Tracy, your sound is very bad. Can we try to fix it? Okay, because yes, put off your camera, and maybe I should to kind of just see.
Is that better?
It's still very scratchy. Okay, try again, Tracy.
Okay, I'm not better at all.
No, it's not. It's not better at all. Can we?
Try.
Okay, Tracy. You can mute yourself. I want Tracy to really maybe try without the headphones, Tracy. Tracy, are you still there? Glitches. Tracy, can you try without your headphones?
Try that, but then you can't hear me at all. It could be the network.
Okay.
Try another device. I'll be with you in a second.
Tracy, please mute. I'm gonna go ahead and try to while Tracy fixes sound, I will also try to summarize in between, but I think you need a full summary of what Rosie has said. So we will try to fix Tracy her sound, and then I'm going to go over to Portia to maybe start so that we can save time. Portia, is jy gereed? Dan kan jy begin.
Hallo, ek is Portia. Ek is Portia se bonka. Ek is van Struisbaai. Ek is gebore hier. Ek is nog my hele lewe lang in Struisbaai. So, ek is die dogter van Patrick Stanley en Shirley Stanley. My pa was 'n visserman en my ma was 'n skoonmaker.
Liba, I'm on another device.
Okay.
Tracy, please let her finish, and then you can come in afterwards, okay?
So, ja, en ons is van 'n vissersdorpie en die lewe op 'n vissersdorpie is maar moeilik. Dit is taaf, maar ons het die beste gemaak wat ons kon. Op 'n vissersdorpie is dit maar klein en almal ken vir almal en dit gaan gepaard met alkohol en dwelms en al daai dinge. So, ek het nie by my ma en my pa groot geraak nie. Ek het by ander mense groot geraak. So, op die ouene van die dag, daar was eintlik strukture nie. En alcohol het 'n groot rol gespeel. So my pa was meeste van die tyd weg op vissers. Soos hulle het gaan visvang, snoekvang, chokka vang. En my ma moes maar die beste maak van alles. So op die ouene van die dag het ek as jong kind skool gelos. Ek het graad 8 geslaag, maar ek wou nie graad 7 toe gaan nie. En niemand het daardie stadium vir jou gesê, luister, jy sal skool maak, klaar maak of ietsie. Jy moet doodgebore moet jy gaan werk en jy moet gaan werk by die kombuis in die kombuis by die bidvrou. So skool het ek gelos en regtig het ek begin eksperimenteer met wyn. Ek het op 'n jong ouderdom begin drink en ek was 15 toe ek my kerel ontmoet en hy was 21 en ek noem dit om rede dat ek weet daar is baie mense wat kan translate met wat met my gebeur het of my storie. So op die ouderdom van 17 raak ek swanger met my eerste meisiekind en dinge raak reg van daar af want toe begin die ouetjie my te abuse. Ek praat van letterlik abuse en ek moes daar uit. So op die ouene van die dag, jy dink moes maar nou jy het 'n kind, so jy wil graag jou kind goed maak met jou pa. Met die kind se pa, so jy gaan maar al aan en agterna dag van jy uit dit werk net nie. So op die ouene van die dag, ek dink ek was 22 toe ek vir hom los en besluit, daar's more to life. So ek het gewerk want ek het 'n kind gehad en daai tyd jy moes maar werk en alles doen wat jy kan doen. So ek het alles gedoen onder die son. En omdat Struisbaai 'n klein plekkie is, het almal geken. Ek het alles gedoen. Ek het kelnerin gedoen. Ek het skoon gemaak. Ek het alles gedoen wat ek kon. So op die ouene van die dag, ek het 'n verskriklike wilskrag gehad. ek was 'n groot dromer, ek wou en ek het nie altyd geweet hoe nie. Maar ek het geweet ek is destined vir groot dinge, want ek was anders, ek was altyd anders. Maar ek het gelaf om mooi te lyk. Ek het gelaf om mense te ontmoet. Ek het gestryf tussen mense. Ek het alle opportunities wat daar was, het ek gegaan. Ek het gegou daarvoor. So ek was altyd 'n vriend. En dit lewe het aangegaan. Op 'n stadium het ek my huidige man geontmoet en ek het swanger geraak van hom, maar lewe was echt in die sens van ek het gedrink, ek het die structure in my lewe gehad nie. Alles wat was net op 'n sekere ding. Daar was niks regtig op die einde van die dag. En ek onthou ek was swanger met my tweede kind en my aanstaande kerel hy wou net nie meer met my visie, want as ek drink het ek 'n manier gehad om te beklei en ek het, is net, en ek sê dit want ek weet daar's baie mense wat kan relate met die storie. En dit is wat gebeur, dit is die realiteit. En toe my situasie, ek het regtig gesit in my lewe geondersoek, is dit al wat daar is? Dit kan nie al wees van my lewe nie, dit kan nie. En daar het ek so stuk my lewe begin optel. Ek moet sê my geloof het regtig vir my gedra, vir alle die tye as ek geweet hoe en wat nie. En ek onthou, ek het oral gewerk. So as gevolg van die wyn het dit ook telkens gemaak dat ek nie by my werk opgedaag het en dan goeie werke verloor het as gevolg van dit. So dit was rof. Maar so het ek my lewe in orde gekry, want ek het nou 2 kinders in plaas van 1. En dit was regtig moeilik. En ek het oral gewerk. En ek het naderhand by 'n garage gewerk as 'n jokkie. En ek het baie gelaf. Ek het dit gelaf want ek het mense geontmoet, ek het different mense gemeet, ek het hulle stories gehoor en dit was net amazing. It was regtig amazing en om tussen mense te wees. En so het my weg daar tot die einde gekom en toe sit ek weer daar wat ek was. Soos in it's like shoe, jy kry net 'n breek. En toe het ek somehow het my nommer opgeëindig op die meier van Strysbaai se dinges en mense het mense gesoek wat hardwerkend is en wat wou leer en dit is waar ek toe opeindig in die spa bedryf, in die beauty bedryf en ek onthou ek het niks geweet van beauty af nie en dis waar my journey actually begin het. Dis waar ek na myself begin kyk het met nuwe oë, myself laat droom het en myself laat gaan het en ge-explore het en mense het vir my gekyk en gesê amper soos in jy wou, so ons gaan alles doen wat ons kan doen om vir jou te help. So die meisie wat ek begin werk het by die spa het vir my gestuur vir kursusse. So ek het nails begin doen, ek het voete gedoen, ek het massage gedoen. Ek het even op my vrye tyd begin make-up doen en dit was amazing. Maar in die tyd wat ek daar gewerk het, het ek myself opgebou. So ek het vir my om my kliënte diens of my skill te versterk en te verbeter, het ek mense by die huis gedoen teen 'n fooi natuurlik. En in daardie tyd het ek myself begin opbou. Ek onthou, ek het 'n 5-jaar plan gehad en ek het geskryf oor wat ek wou word en waar ek wil wees binne 5 jaar. En op daardie ding het ek gesê, ek wil my lisensie hê. Ek wil my kinders in 'n goeie skool sit. En elke keer as ek iets bereik en dan val ek my by, okay, dit was op die blaai. En binne die eerste jaar het ek my 'n kar gekoop. Binne die eerste jaar het ek 'n kar gekoop en ek het my lisensie gekry, ek het my kind in 'n goeie skool gesit. En dit was amazing om te sien hoe jou drome stuk vir stuk bewaar kan word deur hardwerkend te wees en net te visualize, kry jou visie en werk volgens daai visie. En ek moet sê, toe ek 2 jaar later besluit, okay, ek het nou genoeg gehad en ek gaan op my eie. Toe die besluit nie net gekom van dit is wat ek gaan doen en dit is wat ek wil doen nie. Daar is asof die noodlot forceer jou in een rigting in En dan gebeur dinge. En so het my besigheid ontstaan waar ek na mense se huise toe gaan en hulle voete en hulle naels doen, massering doen in die gemak van hulle eie huis. En ek het verskriklik baie support gekry by die gemeenskap. Ek het 'n goeie kliëntel opgebou deur die jare. Ek moet sê dis nou al 3 jaar wat ek so aangaan. En dinge was nie altyd maklik nie, want ek onthou die eerste 2 maande toe breek my kar en daar was nie regtig geld om kar reg te maak. So, en dan moet jou mindset so ingestel wees om te sê van, you know what, ek sal doen wat ek moet doen en ek weet iewers gaan die res van haar kom. Gebed dra my altyd deur, want regtig waar, dis al in hierdie tyd of in hierdie gemeenskap wat vir jou staande hou is jou geloof. So ek moet sê, baie mense het hulle deure vir my oopgemaak, hulle harte vir my oopgemaak, selfs by die tyd toe my kar breek en ek vir myself sê, you know what, al moet ek ook loop tot daar, al moet ek ook 'n ryding hier tot daar, en dan van daar, en dan is dit so mooi, want die oggend kom maar iemand my optel, en dan die aand kom maar 'n next ding vir my aflaai, en mense was redig, ek het besef dat mense wil net sien jy wil, en dan maak hulle harte oop. So, op die einde van die dag, en dit is hoe my besigheid, en ek is verskriklik, ek love wat ek doen, ek stryf met mense, ek kan nie vir julle begin beskryf as ek sê, my werk is my passie, en dit is wat my staande hou nie. En ook, dat my familie, my kinders is vir my verskriklik belangrik, omdat ek in 'n vaste omstandighede groot geraak het, wil ek vir hulle daai gee. So, hulle is my motivering om aan te gaan en om altyd deur te druk. Ja, daar is tye wat ek voel, ek wil opgee, wat ek voel, ek kan nie meer nie, maar daai stryd binne my is om te sê, gaan aan, you know what, jy het so ver gekom, dit gaan nie net van opgee nie, want opgee is maklik, opgee is regtig maklik, en ja, daar is miskien mense wat wil hê of sien, jy moenie succeed nie, but you push through, you go for it. En my kinders, ek wil vir hulle 'n legacy nalaat, om te sê dat hulle moet altyd weet, hulle het 'n ma gehad wat hard gewerk het, 'n ma gehad wat vir hulle gewys het, you know what, this is life. Dit gaan nie altyd maklik wees nie, dit gaan nie altyd maanskyn en rose wees nie, maar op die einde van die dag, het gaan nie moeten weerd wees. Ek het vir myself gesê, ek wil vir my kinders die beste geleerdheid gee, skool gee, en al moet ek ook kryp, om het te daar te kom, dan doen ek het. Op die oomblik het ek 4 werke, waarop ek baie trots is. Ek het 'n gastehuis wat ek bestuur, vir mense in die Vrystaat, hulle sê hier nie, so ek sien en sorg dat die gastehuis reg is, as daar mense inkom. Die gastehuis die gastehuis geld wat ek verdien, is vir my kind se skool, fooie en 'n proteksiefee en alles daai. Dan het ek nog 'n werk by die IEC kantore, ek is hier Strysby, die manager van Strysby, die area manager, daai is vir my kosgeld. Dan het ek nog 'n werk, ek maak huise skoon, en ek het regtig daai verhouding met my mense, dat hulle vir my trust, en hulle vir my sê, luister, ek gaan op vakansie, wil jy nie ons huise skoon maak nie, ons trust vir jou, jy kan die sleutel kry, en daai tipe ding. Ek sal by die gastehuis kom skoon maak, en dan sal hulle vir my sê, Porsche, wat doen jy? En oor die algemeen, dan sal ek sê, jy weet wat, ek het 'n besigheid, en dan is ek besig om skoon te maak, en dan sal hulle vir my sê, maar wil jy nie my naels doen nie? Dan is dit hooggeleerde mense, is lawyers, is dokters, en dan voel ek like, wow, you know what, I can do this, even though ek is maak skoon of whatever ook al, of ek is waar ewe ook al. Op die einde van die dag is dit, mense sien vir jou wie jy is, vir wie jy is, en vir wat jy is. Want ek voel trots of ek nou so lyk en of ek nou anders lyk, ek voel trots. En ek gaan my werk doen met alles in my, en ek moet sê, en dan het ek nou die besigheid waar ek nou my naels doen, en ek doen make-up, ek doen alles wat daar kan is. So, my focus is my besigheid, waar ek naels doen, voete doen, en massages doen, en dan ook moes make-up by troues, en bla, al die 110 goed. So, aanvanklik was die droom om vir my 'n plekkie by my huis in te rig, maar dit is nie volhoubaar nie, dit is nie prakties nie, want ons is nie geleë op 'n goeie plekkie. So en daar's ook die parkering nie, so dit maak nie regtig sin om die plek van die huis af te beweeg nie. Hulle sê as jy jou besigheid registreer, dan het jy voordele. Dis wat die munisipaliteit sê. Jy het voordele as jy 'n 5-jaar plan opstel en vir hulle wys waartoe jy gaan, dan kan julle vir jou X bedrag geld gee en jy kan hulle sal vir jou stuur vir finansiële kursusse en al die 110 goed. Maar dit is 'n eindelose ding. Ek het my besigheid is geregistreerd. Ek het hoeveel vorms ingevul, ek het hoeveel naartoe gegaan, ek het e-mails gestuur, ek is tans besig met SIDA om ook daar funding te kry en is net 'n countless battle. Soos in hulle sê hulle wil upcoming entrepreneurs sien, hulle wil hulle help, hulle wil bemag, maar in die 3 jaar wat ek nou dit doen, is hulle nêrens nie. Hulle is net nooit nêrens nie en hulle stuur jy van die een kantoor na die ander kantoor en dit hou nie op nie. En ek moet sê daar is geen sins finansiële bydra of finansiële, en aangesien dit 'n klein dorpie is en aangesien mense jou ken en almal ken vir almal, is dit regtig is regtig 'n struggle. Jy moet jou huis uitsort, jy moet jou
Portia, ek dink jy gaan die hele seminar, jy gaan die hele webinar gee as ek vir jou nou stoppie. Baie dankie. Ek dink dat ons kan baie leer van wat jy gesê het. Ingrid, are you able to just summarize a story for those who don't, and then we can go to Tracy to summarize what Rosie is saying. And I'm also mindful of the time. I'm a timekeeper too, but it doesn't look like I'm doing too well. So Ingrid, Portia, kan jy asseblief vir jou mute? And then I'll give it over to Ingrid. Thank you.
Thanks, Maniba. I'm going to go through my notes here quickly. Portia said that she was born of a fisherwoman and her mom was a cleaner. Life in a fishing village was not always easy, lots of social ills. For example, in her household, alcohol was a problem. And so while her father was out at sea, she was dabbling in alcohol, and then she was tripped up by alcohol, so much so that she left school at a very early age and at a very low grade. And when she left, there was no one in the community to say, but you have to stay in school. There was no pressure to stay in school. So she left to start working. At the age of 15, she met her boyfriend. And at the age of 17, she was pregnant and in a very abusive relationship where she stayed until she couldn't take it anymore. And she knew at the age of 22 that she wanted more. So she started doing a lot of things around town. She literally did everything from waitressing to eventually ending up at a filling station where she was a petrol attendant. But she knew she had drive. She was very good with people, and she also loved looking beautiful. Life went on. She met her husband, and another child was on the way, but she was still drinking and had lots of drinking problems. He wanted to leave her because when she was drunk, she became quarrelsome. And then she had to ask herself the hard questions like, what is it that you want to become? What would you want to be? And she lost many of the jobs that she had due to alcohol, but things had to change. And in that time, the mayor of Struisbaai was looking for people who wanted to work in the spa industry, and she threw herself in there and then discovered that she really liked it. And so much so that she started looking for courses and stuff to do nails, hair, and makeup. And she started working on her own interpersonal skills, and also started working from home to serve people who do not necessarily go to the formal spas, to start doing things from her home. In that time, she started drawing up a 5-year plan One of it was to have a license, and the other was to send the kids to a good school. She did it within a year. She bought a car, and though it was hard, she did it, and she also sent the kids to school. She then went, after much contemplation, she went on her own, started her own business, and she started visiting people in their own homes, and so she started building her own clientele. She reiterates that it's not always easy. For example, when a car broke, she had to push through, but because she had by then developed a relationship with the community and people could see that she really wanted to work, they helped her a lot by giving her lifts, and even if she had to work to where she had to be, that's what she did. She says, when your work is your passion, then it doesn't feel like work, and she found her passion. Her kids are very important because from her own upbringing, where she didn't have a good family life, she wanted her children, she wants the children to be spared that, and she wants to give them the best. There's no time to give up. I have to show my kids, I have to push through. I have 4 jobs that I'm managing at the moment. I manage a guest house. I am the area manager in Struisbaai for the IEC. I clean houses. There's no shame in that. And she also does people's nails when they ask her, when they come to the guest house. And it makes her feel good about whatever it is that she does. All the money she earns goes towards the betterment of her family. The dream was to set a house up as a business from where she could work, but too many challenges. And the bureaucracy from the municipality side, even though they want a 5-year plan from you, she can say with confidence that nothing is happening. She's charging water. She's filled in so many forms, but there is no financial investment. And that is where she stopped.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. That was fabulously done. So I'm going to go over to Tracy to just quickly do a translation of Rosie so that everyone on the call, and I still see that we've got over 330 participants. Welcome to those who have joined late. We are just translating a very powerful talk earlier from Rosie Sisola, a fisherwoman from Lambertsbaai. Tracy?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me better now. So yeah, Rosie Sisola, fisherwoman from Lambertsbaai, and her main question to herself back in the day, and even to everyone else, was why the ocean for a woman? And her main motivation was that she is nobody's maid. She absolutely refused to work in a white woman's kitchen because she is an African queen. And she says that unashamedly. She said, it creates a positive spirit. It lessens your troubles, and you become one with the sea. Currently, she's working as a post-harvester after she worked on the ocean for a very long time as a fisherwoman, and then an injury made that she started to work as a post-harvester, where she currently is processing snook at the harbor at Lambertsbaai. So when it came to the allocation of fishing rights, she says currently it's 95% men and 5% women. Also, men do not want to take, even if you are part of that 5%, men refuses to take you with to the sea on their boats because women are not considered as people who should go out to sea and fish. It's a tough life, and it's a tough life to put food on the table. It's difficult to get financial assistance as a woman on the sea, even if they have the best skills and the most brilliant plans. Currently, there are in our area, there are 12 fishing co-ops and 2 co-ops that are post-harvest, and that is the 2 co-ops are women. And 350,000 Rand was donated by the DTI, of which none of those funding went to post-harvest, so none of that went to women. she says being a fisherwoman and being in the fishing industry is also very tough. It is, you are working in unprotected circumstances. There's no pension fund, whereas if you have another occupation, there's a pension fund. But she says that when the sea is done with you, your life is done, because there's no pension fund for you. Also, when you have injuries, when you get injured at sea, there is no compensation for you. She says fishers contribute a lot of money towards the road accident fund by petrol and fuel that they put into their boats. But there's absolutely no compensation when there's an accident at sea, unlike road users, where they get compensated if there's accidents or anything. But she says fishers contribute very, very much, as much more sometimes. The fisher person is like 3 months of the year you are employed. The snook for 3 months of the year, and it's not enough for you to start a business. And you need to find help somewhere. And winter is the most difficult time for women, because the men don't worry where the food comes from. The women have to worry about where the food comes from and how the kids get to school. The government is busy with to make small-scale fishing extinct by creating all kinds of other business opportunities at the ocean side and in the ocean. Like, for example, in Saldanha and in Richards Bay, they're busy with the process, and all the activities there is making the fish not to bite and extinct. Beach mining is causing reefs, and it threatens marine life, and the fish and the crayfish then moves towards the deeper side of the ocean, and there's no, the fishermen can't get close enough to that side. It's a threat to the fauna and flora, and therefore the tourism industry is also affected. And all these plans causes that the fish becomes scarcer and scarcer. Already the crayfish is only active at night and not during the day. The wind is changing. The specific species that they catch in the areas are getting smaller and scarcer. And she says that a woman's work is not seen and it's not recognized. During COVID, many people did not work. The kids went hungry, the school feeding program stopped. And it's actually the women who stood up and organized feeding schemes and took the lead. And then also she mentioned that the 350 Rand given, women were also discriminated against in terms of that, because often women receive the child grants and therefore they did not qualify for the 350 Rand grants, and the men could receive it. So that is basically a summary of what Rosie talked about. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Two different women, two different contexts, same struggles that they go through, but they deal with it differently. Also, you will find that on the one hand, you'll find a woman that is against all odds, determined, had particular entrepreneurial characteristics of driving her own need to say that I want to be different and I'm going to drive to do that. And that's often a characteristic of an entrepreneur. But then you find Rosie, who's an entrepreneur of a different kind. She's the entrepreneur of someone who's more politically driven, ideologically driven. She is saying that she's an activist in her blood. She doesn't want to do things because of her activism, because of her politics, and because of her struggle against the apartheid regime. And that struggles also continue to today in terms of the blue economy, Operation Pakisa, Ocean Master Plan, car power ship. that has given rights to these big ships from Turkey to come and provide energy for South Africa, the sand mining. So she deals with all the current struggles, but also in the backdrop of COVID, and also in the backdrop of many of the challenges that Portia has explained to you in terms of her life and what her struggles are. So I'm going to go to Tracy, who is a PhD student at PLAS, and she's going to talk about talking about organizing women and how difficult it is to organize women in the space during COVID and in general. So over to you, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks, Muniba. So my presentation is with a backdrop of a project that we've been doing at PLAS with a group of women from the Overberg and the West Coast. So the background of this is that fishing community.
I suggest you put off your camera, Tracy. Tracy, can you switch off your camera? We can't hear you. It's
people now have
Portia, kan jy ook jou camera afsit asseblief en dan kan sy miskien meer bandwidth kry. Dankie. Okay, please go ahead, Tracy.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so this all started with a formal rights allocation, and this proved to have a negative effect on a lot of livelihoods of fishing communities. And added to this is the ever-present danger of poaching, which is highly illegal, carrying severe penalties. And in some communities, women's economic dependence and vulnerability means that they are regularly exploited by local and outside poachers and coerced into engaging in criminal activities, often with disastrous consequences. And in the light of climate change, the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, and the United Nations and the Benguela Current Commission, the BCC, started to think about climate change adaptation strategies for fishing communities in South Africa. And this emanated into a workshop at UCT in 1990. And the aim of the workshop was to support moving from vulnerability assessments to adaptation planning and implementation in fisheries and aquaculture. And amongst the key areas of interest identified by the South African participants was the use of marine resources like kelp and seaweed for the production of products like soap, food, cosmetics, etc., and as part of climate change adaptation. So the objective of this project was to assist a South African pilot, and the overall outcome of the project would be to have improved country capacity to develop and implement climate change adaptation plans and actions that promote socioeconomic development with specific attention to poverty reduction and food security in the fishery and aquaculture sector. So in South Africa, this project is supposed to build on the work already undertaken by the FAO and BCC. And specifically, it will supposed to conduct skills training workshops for vulnerable coastal communities, particularly women, on the use of alternative marine resources that would enable them to adapt to the negative changes in fish resources availability as a result of climate change. So then PLAS initiated this gendered climate change program in the Overberg with a specific approach to localization of experts, sustainable use of resources, candles, soap, and jewelry making from kelp. And it would also look at the low energy consumption. So in this discussion, I want to zoom into the challenges that we experienced during this series of training sessions, and in particular, what the challenges are when organizing women. And the four main points that I want to highlight, main challenges that we experienced. The first one is intergenerational differences between women. The second, creating women-only safe spaces. The third challenge, identifying vulnerable women and giving them a platform. And the fourth one would be the challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. So the first one, looking at intergenerational differences between women. So while working on the training course with coastal women, the older women were more conscious of their struggles and battles in their journey for small-scale fishing rights and the recognition as small-scale fishers, whereas the younger women were more geared to the future and have a greater focus on creating and grasping opportunities. The younger women see themselves in a better position to operate, and in a way, this is a tribute to the older women, because sometimes also feel that the older women do not always understand them, and they expect them to operate at the same level as they do. The other challenge in terms of time is how to work in a way that as a suitable time for everyone. Women are the primary care workers, and in these gendered activities these gendered activities are a key contribution to inequalities, and the available time women have for advocacy, self-development, and entrepreneurial ventures. So the social reproductive role of women has cultural, historical, and geographic roots, and timing is a key challenge in all that is creating women-only safe spaces. So whether they are present in the space or not, it is when women speak, they're not taken seriously unless there's some form of validation, mostly from men. And the key challenge in organizing women is to give a voice and a platform to women, help them serve validation, prove faith and gain knowledge, confidence to stand on their own, and not organize women or talk about entrepreneurship or business with women without talking about their struggles, their relationship, and confidence challenges. It is important to create a safe space and always be aware of the dynamics within that space. The wounded women be recognized.
And there we lost Tracy. I think that Tracy is, yeah, we will, we will give her more time when she comes back. I'm also very mindful that we are running out of time, Tracy. I will give you some time to come back. You just went offline now, so your internet seems to be quite a little bit volatile. Can you quickly summarize, Tracy, in terms of time? And then we can move over to Ingrid, because there's also some important questions and answers that we need to go to. Thank you.
Where did you lose me, Moniba? I was almost done.
You were talking about safe spaces for women and in terms of men. So if you can just wrap up what you were talking around that.
Yeah, it's about the wounded spaces of women that we need to recognize. We cannot organize or talk about entrepreneurship or business with women. I've got 4 challenges. I'm on my 3rd one now. So the third one is identifying vulnerable women and giving them a platform. So quite often women in small-scale fishing are often invisible. The mindset and determination to actually start to generate an income from something that do not have enough confidence in their products to actually believe that people will buy them. A key challenge is to identify the most vulnerable of these women. You do recognize a kind of a class divide within coastal and with other communities. They are the women leaders. Sometimes some of them can double as gatekeepers, who know most of what is happening within communities. They're up to date with opportunities, developments, etc. And these are mostly the older women who are also sometimes seen as elders within the communities. Then there are those closest to these leading women, usually family or friends, who have easier access to these opportunities. And usually these are the women that benefit most from the programs and opportunities. Then there are the other women followers in the community who find it difficult to find their own voices through their own struggles. This hierarchical, and you can call it patriarchal structure, is extremely challenging when organizing. When creating circles for women, these this is the exact system that we want to overcome and change in order to create platforms for all, especially the most vulnerable. So in this case, the facilitation process becomes key, and then recognizing the strength and capabilities of everyone in the circle. The last challenge that I want to mention, and I'm wrapping up, is the challenges experienced by women during the COVID-19. So one of the key challenges for the group was to make a start on the activities since the project started. And at the same time, that was the time when COVID-19 started to come to South African shores. And the challenges of staying safe and healthy, as well as caring for their families, while some of the participants actually had the virus themselves, had detrimental effects on coastal communities. And during the pandemic, there was a definite shift away from politics towards community leadership. And often it was women that took up these roles, whether it be in soup kitchens, participating in vaccine campaigns, or increasing their reproductive capabilities. Women had the extra responsibilities of homeschooling, and since school feeding programs stopped during lockdown, they also had more mouths to feed during a time when the tourism industry came to a halt. Many had to support the household income by doing domestic work, work in guest houses and restaurants, and especially during the time when tourism spikes and there was no income in that case. And for some women, the stipend they received during these training sessions that we did was the only income that they had, and they could at least feed the family. And this indicated that there was a shift towards women leadership. And a key challenge going forward would be how this could be allowed to grow outside of these deliberate women-only spaces, be that in business, be that in community leadership, and while the men are still claiming those spaces. So other challenges experienced during the organizing process and made it more difficult during the pandemic was to receive training and information around marketing and labeling, and to be able to purchase materials to start their ventures and to organize themselves in groups, and then get together on a regular basis to make stars into that they still strive towards.
Thank you, Tracy. I think your
for example, in the economy, how do we claim our wounded spaces? And relating this to the kind of activities women relate to climate change, that is low energy, low cost, and to obtain the materials to create sustainable livelihoods. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you could hear.
Yeah, you really rushed through that. Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for giving us insights that, you know, it's not straightforward when organizing women. It is also within women, there are different type of dynamics, there are different struggles, there are class dynamics, there are different forms of elite capture, there are social reproduction issues that women are currently engaged and have to take on, and more so during COVID. There are also an issue that, you know, you have a project that is funded outside. To what extent does this project then translate into localization? How do we then, when we talk about climate change, when we're talking about the blue economy, when you're talking about jobs, how does it kind of just elude women and poor people? And it seems to be the narrative in terms of the kind of space we're in, that there seem to be a lot of opportunities, there seem to be a lot of states that we can do, but in reality, it doesn't really reach out to people. And it seems to be, you have to have it in yourself to be able to go against that. Somehow something is not right. So I'm going to my last guest, who is most probably known to many people. Her name is Ingrid Jones, and she is a publisher. She is a TV and radio presenter, and she's a lot more. I know her as a very strong facilitator. I know her as someone who also feel that she needs to be part of the change in terms of empowering women. So Ingrid will use design system thinking and see how that, and talk about that approach to how she has worked with the women, coastal women, in the project that Tracy has mentioned. Over to you, Ingrid.
Thanks, Maniba. I'm going to see if my face is there for a second, and if you all can see me now, then I'm going to switch it off now that you know, so that you can focus on my voice and I don't get disturbed by the weather, because on my side, and I'm sure Tracy's also, is the storm that is hitting the Overberg. So thank you, Moniba, for the opportunities. Let me start off by saying a question. You have the sea as a natural resource, now what? And I'm going to quote Professor Sabelo J. Ndlovu Kacheni that says, what Africans must be vigilant against is the trap of ending up normalizing and universalizing coloniality as a natural state of the world. It must be unmasked, resisted, and destroyed, because it produced a world order that can only be sustained through a combination of violence, deceit, hypocrisy, and lies. Frans Fanon, the West Indian psychoanalyst, philosopher, and author, says in The Wretched of the Earth, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Historian and decoloniality scholar, again, Professor Sabelo Ndlovu Kacheni, asked in one of his papers, why decoloniality in the 21st century? And he says, the irony of South Africa's transition from apartheid colonialism gave the colonial matrices of power the space to continue to exist in the minds, lives, language, dreams, imaginations, and epistemologies of modern subjects. For Black people in South Africa, murdered Black conscious leader Steve Bantu Biko's philosophy of Black pride is still relevant post-1994 and thus today in 2021 too. As long as this situation exists, Steve Biko's words ring true. It, Black consciousness, seeks to infuse the Black community with a newfound pride in themselves, their efforts, their value systems, their culture, their religion, and their outlook to life. Now, I am from a farming community, Bonnievale, and I'm a trained teacher turned publisher and entrepreneur. Part of my giving back is to plow back into the farming community I come from by getting back to teaching at one of the schools in my hometown when I turn 60 next year. Imagine my delight when I was approached by PLAS to come on board as a facilitator of the work that they do. I was elated to finally have been recognized by the laws of manifestation and synchronicity. PLAS, however, was not the Afrikaans translation for farm, but rather the acronym for the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies. Purpose and positioning aligned. I might not have been to the PLAS I know, but my PLAS dream brought me to be a part of this PLAS program aptly titled Blue Finance. There's a lot of questions about that I see in the Q&A section. A red herring for coastal women, myths, gaps, and challenges in starting a small business. In 2019, I attended a design thinking course at UCT's D School, and it awoken in me the dream, no, the desire, not even that, the duty to put into action what I for long thought was missing in post-apartheid South Africa, and especially with Plattelandse communities. A workshop that has no prescribed manual or outcomes in mind. What then would be my point of departure? What would be my guiding principles? It is Biko's philosophy that infused my thinking to name my workshops From Self-Doubt to Self-Sustainability, to infuse the Black community with a newfound pride in themselves, their efforts, their value systems, their culture, their religion, and their outlook to life. I took design thinking as the ideating system to balance Professor Ndlovu Kacheni's view that territorialization of the production of knowledge is in fact a genuine effort to counter imperialist thought that pushes African knowledge to the margins of society and build in people a renewed sense of pride and ownership in order to build successful entrepreneurship in the blue economy. Now, what is design thinking? Design thinking has got 5 stages. So design thinking, in essence, is a design methodology that provides a solution-based approach to solving problems. It has no preconceived ideas about the outcome, but rather in understanding the people and the challenges involved. The process is premised on reframing the problem in a people-centric way. Ideas are created by collective brainstorming or brain walking, as we like to call it, prototyping, testing, and then understanding it by the participants. Now, the 5 stages, the first one is to empathize, the second one to redefine, the third to ideate, the fourth to prototype, and the fifth to test. Now, in terms of the empathizing, and if you can, the 2 women that we listened to earlier, and also based on what Tracy was saying, is that innovation should be people-centered. There is no one-size-fits-all manual. You gain an empathetic understanding of the problem or the challenge that you are trying to solve. This involves consulting the people present in the venue to find out more about them, their areas of concern, listening to their experiences and motivation. Every participating group develops their own people-centric design process. I will repeat, don't worry. Participants are encouraged to set aside their own assumptions about the world in general and their own lived world to gain insight into themselves and into the needs of others. You need to dispense all your beliefs about yourself. Enough time should be allowed to gain a substantial amount of information and to listen, to learn, and not to judge. The second stage is defining. Now that you've done the empathizing and you've listened, is to focus on solving relevant challenges that comes out of the room. Brainstormed information is gathered during the empathize phase and is collated in this particular phase, the defining phase. You combine all the research and observe where the problems exist. Observations are analyzed by the team leader in conjunction with a group and then collated to define the core problem or challenge. A problem statement is written down in a people-centered manner. For example, instead of personalizing the problem or a perceived problem that the group based on own assumptions, so let's say they say the problem is, we need to increase our products to sell to the community, to tourists, by learning to make more soaps, jewelry, or preserved foods. You heard that from Tracy. Instead, you say, to attract more business from people, from the community and the tourists, we need to show and grow our indigenous projects with the emphasis on indigenous products that we harvest from our own area. Now we're beginning to understand the blue economy. The define stage will help the group members to gather and pool ideas to establish features, functions, and other elements that will allow them to solve the challenge. The next stage will begin to shape by asking, now, how are you going to do this? How might we, fishing communities, encourage the community and tourists to buy and invest in our products? Now you get to the exciting stage, the third one, which is called the ideating stage. Creativity leads and a yes attitude rules. Participants are now ready to start generating ideas. Remember, they came there with their own knowledge. You are not telling them what to do at all. The facilitator has grown to understand the participants and their needs in the empathize stage. So in that, now you also start to think outside the box. Don't even think of a box, just kick the box away to identify new solutions to the challenge statement created. Start exploring alternative ways of viewing the challenge. For example, you don't just work in your own group, you start doing brain walking. It's very different to brainstorming. So you walk the room to all the other groups and you ask them for input. They might have better ideas than the group that, for example, you are in or the one that you are having, and that is called brain walking, right? To gain new insights into your ideas. Now we are at the fourth stage, the prototype phase. Ideas are just ideas until they are brought to life. Many people have many ideas, but if you don't put it to action, it's just going to be an idea. Each team scale down their ideas to become product specific so that they can investigate the solutions that they have come up with in the previous stage. No one told them. You build real tactile, now you build a presentation, like a prototype, you build it for a range of ideas generated with whatever is in the room, paper, scissors, chalk, feathers, kelp, whatever. Identify the constraints inherent to the product. Example, if you work with fresh fish, are there any new ideas of how to work with it? It's an experimental phase. Accept, improve, re-examine, reject, if necessary, implement. Have fun to find the best solution, and now we're going to test it. Innovation is a cycle of doing and learning. Results generated during the testing phase are often to redefine. Nothing is static and you can redefine all the time. You make alterations and refinements to rule out problems to get to an understanding of the product and its users. Because remember, it's people-centric. I'm barreling through because I'm also mindful of time. Now, my section of the workshop dealt with from self-doubt to self-sustainabilities. And I'm now going to talk about the two communities that Tracy talked about very briefly. Now, the Overberg group, this group consisted of 24 women of different ages, life stages, and entrepreneurial experience from different coastal towns in the Overberg Suiderstraat. They were very familiar with each other. They were quite boisterous. It was clear from when I got there who the leaders were, who dominated the room, who talked the most, and who preferred to be wallflowers. Now, my approach was to create a talking circle, split the different regions, hand out envelopes and ask them to write down what they wanted to take away from these 2 days that we were going to engage in, even if they said, I wanted a break from my kids. Just be truthful and honest. The envelopes were sealed for safekeeping. Through gentle probing and intimate face-to-face chats with each other, we started the empathy process. The room moved from bravado to silence to some intense confessions and breakthrough talks when we had our check-ins through the morning, because you have to check in all the time. Stories of financial, emotional, physical abuse, homelessness, single parenthood, job losses, the crushing of their dreams by the patriarchy of their relationships and community, divorce, betrayal through adultery, a whole host of stuff. One mom who was there with a daughter heard for the first time what her daughter endured in her marriage and then broke down with a confession that she was the one asking her daughter to go back every time because she did not know. She heard there in this workshop for the first time what was happening. And many more personal stories. It was an emotionally loaded room, yet exhilarating and liberating at the same time. Like Maya Angelou says, I know why the caged bird sings. It took us almost 3/4 of the day to break through the external bravado, to get to the real women behind the facades before we could go over to the brain-walking ideas and business opportunities and concepts. No one's idea was more superior. They had to work in groups. Are you going to cut me? Not. We then could move, and then we moved to the ideating stage. And it ended up in an overnight assignment to present new ideas with all the new skills that they learned. Their new sense of self, their belief that they are worthy and they can elevate themselves with institutional knowledge that they possess, not I, in abundance. That night I came home and I had to debrief what transpired because I was never ready. It was very humbling. It was a throwback to where I come from and how we are not ready for the blue economy. Day 2 was a roaring success. The presentations were amazing. They had access to Wi-Fi. Might I add that Wi-Fi and data are non-negotiables. It's a basic human right to have access to information. We should prioritize that each participant has a smartphone. It's imperative. The women came dressed to the nines. I handed them 24 gifts that I assembled for them, and then we cried some more. They felt seen and they felt heard, because if the presenter can show and share his or her own vulnerabilities with the people in the venue, half of your battle is won. They made videos. The wallflowers were now great presenters, and the confidence was clearly infused by the fact that they knew that they had it in them. They had it. It just needed acknowledgement. The only thing lacking was financial competence for their dreams, something I don't have in my toolkit. Now, quickly to the West Coast group, Muniba. The West Coast had a whole different dynamic. It too consisted of different towns, age splits. Not all of them had access to phones. There were males in the room, and then the dynamic changed. The women were quiet and reserved. There was one strong male and 2 very shy males. I asked the organizers if they could please not be in the venue because it was obvious that when they are in the room, then the people are even more shy to talk. The older people have been there for a very long time, and the younger ones were new and excited, but they seem intimidated by the older people. The round table only worked with the more outspoken and dominant types, and the younger ones refused to talk. One feigned, I'm not making this up, 2 different sicknesses on 2 different days. Yes, feigned. I was a teacher, I can recognize it. She did not, what the problem was that she did not have the confidence to step into herself yet. There were some hostilities between the younger members in the group that was clearly interpersonal. The group was asked, but anyway, I'm going to summarize that to say that at the end of that particular day or 2 days, I was a little bit hanging shoulders. I was thinking like there's a lot of drag-alongs, people who come that Tracy talked about to maybe just get the stipend that they were getting, and I can't blame them. But the next day, for example, once they've understood what was happening, they came with their own ideas. Even the shy guys, the one shy guy became one of our stars, and he had a brilliant idea, you know, how to work with fresh fish. So that was a win. Then we had the groups together at Artscape not too long after that to teach them financial fitness that I can't. And on that particular day, even the drag-alongs, I have to tell, came with stuff that they made that no one could have thought that they would have done, that would be scalable immediately and to be sold to tourists and community people. Now, we are an exciting juncture with this group, with the necessary branding, packaging, product development that doesn't constrain them to do the things they think they should do because it's what they have been taught by us. Financial savvy, they can be their ancestors' wildest dreams. Through self-reliance, they can dispel the myths, close the gaps, and turn challenges into opportunities to scale their small businesses. I'm done now, Muniba. I will send this to you so that you can send it to other people if they want to see a little bit more about the process and how it panned out in the very different groups, which makes it exciting and lots of hard work. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. I also thank you very much. Can you all put on your camera? I hope that Rosie has not left us. Please put on your cameras. We have about 4 minutes to kind of deal with the questions and answers and also to kind of pull this together. Not really fair. It should have been a 2-hour session because we have to honor people to speak in their own language and also to translate for those who don't understand. It is clear that from the group, there are extremely powerful women who are stepping into different spaces and are making changes in their different spaces, but that is not without struggles. I think it is important that when we, I want to go to the questions and answers, and one of the big questions that was asked here is, what is blue finance? And I think it is important to kind of situate blue finance in terms of the blue economy. So when when President Jacob Zuma in 2014 July, he started Operation Pakisa, and Pakisa was an initiative via the National Development Plan and also the white paper of the environment management for the oceans. So they looked at what growth can we get out of the oceans, because there's a lot of potential. We're talking about oil, we're talking about gas, we're talking about diamonds, we're talking about phosphate. There is a lot of wealth in the ocean, and we're also talking about fish. The ocean also provides us in terms of shipping. So there's a lot of transporting. If you want to have a container coming from China, is via the shipping part. And where in all of this do you find small-scale fisheries? Now, if we look at the current part of in terms of Operation Pakisa, There's a group now with the Department of Environmental Affairs that are looking at the Oceans Master Plan. And the Oceans Master Plan is just another version of Operation Pakisa. So when we look at this, it is the promises of jobs, it's the promises of capacity development and skills, and also development finance. So blue finance is situated in terms of development funding and development finance in terms of the ocean. And what is often used post-democracy is that we are looking at an industrial model. We're looking at a highly technical model. We're looking at models that require technical skills and also skills that many of our women and our people do not have. So the development funding eludes them. Funding that is going into oil and gas, or the jobs that are often part of aquaculture farming, which is one of the areas that were part of the group Buffelsjag. There are big aquaculture farms that are created there, and the investment in one farm is 120 million. Where do people have that kind of money? And the funding that is available, that government support, is often with joint ventures with established companies and business. So where's the space? So I'm calling the fact that financing projects is all about technology. It's all about modernization. It's all about industrialization. And it's the technical bureaucracy and the red tape and requirements that all exclude this. So blue finance is actually misleading, and it's untrue to promise this finance for development purposes. As Portia has mentioned, there's finance, but but in reality, that is not the case. So it is clear when we're talking about blue finance, the blue economy, we have to look at the fact that, there's a lot of depoliticizing technical initiatives and responses that we community-based cooperatives create all of this. And the state play a key role in that. So it is important that we look at women-led processes. It is important that we need to connect Rosie with Portia so that we are not depoliticizing the issues, but we have to repoliticize the issues. When we're talking about Black consciousness, when we're talking about self-reliant, and when we're talking about self-doubt, it is also about politicizing the issues. Women operate mainly in the informal economies, and this is when we're talking about domestic cleaning, and their work is often invisible. And how is the blue economy part of that? Women would be the cleaners of these factories, women would be the support of the factories, and there would not be real finance for women in terms of this. So when we're talking about entrepreneurship, and we're talking about innovation, we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution, we also need to think that we need to kind of unpack the word entrepreneurship, that we start to look at innovation in terms of what are the social and political innovations that we can look at women-led projects so that we can challenge the dominant commercial system of elite capture, gatekeeping amongst women, the class dynamics, and also take cognizance of the social reproductive role that women are playing. I am very sorry. This was really exciting to kind of bring so many people together, and we may not have answered all the questions, but I know that the university also need to kind of use this link, and it would have been great to continue. This will be recorded, and we will share the link, and that link will also be on YouTube. I do not know if Melody from IA want to say anything else. There are also some questions that Ingrid shared, and what I will also do is to share some of the inputs that we are doing. Interestingly also that both Tracy, myself and Ingrid are co-authors on a chapter where we unpack this issue of entrepreneurship, and we will also look at how we apply design thinking on this. So that is part of a book chapter that is led by the Dean. I want to say that I think that this is an appropriate way to end Women's Month. I think that we can't stop thinking about the issues and the struggle of women when the month ends, but I think it is an appropriate way to say that it is not about flowers, it is not about buying chocolates, it's not Valentine's Day, it is about politics. It is about repoliticizing and the struggles that women continue to go through on the 9th of August in 1956 is a political struggle. And the struggle that we need to take on in terms of the struggle of women and in the oceans economy is also a political struggle. And I think it is important that we connect the dots and we can use people from different environments to kind of come to the same vision. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for your contribution. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you, Portia. Thank you, Rosie. And also thank you very much, Tracy, for your input and also for the kind translations. Thank you. Keep well and all the best. Bye-bye.